Ladies and boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only Zbeck network. Now, right, we can see that we are currently down 3.26%. When we pull it up, right, we can see 3.26% in the last 24 hours. Okay, but this shouldn't come as a surprise because, ladies and gentlemen, right, the whole crypto market is kind of in a sideways downwards trend because it is preparing to be expanding up over the next coming few short weeks. And of course, we also know that something like Zbeck has pumped a lot a few weeks ago, right? If you guys aren't familiar, Zbeck was going sideways for roughly a year, and then it started to expand, right? And then, of course, in the private community, we called out, you know, us entering, and we entered somewhere roughly over here, right? We entered somewhere roughly over here, and we knew that price is going to start pumping. Why? Because not only was the news surrounding ZBEC really good, but the technical analysis as well. Okay, we saw some resistance, but we knew overall the candles based off, the closings and everything that it was going to pump. And then we can see Zbeck was pumping for roughly, let's just say 1 to 2 weeks, very, very aggressively. We also did call, roughly the tops for selling, right? Around this red line. We got in roughly like right at the lowest point, and then we roughly sold at the top. Right? Some people were disagreeing with my decision when I said I did that publicly. Um, and I don't regret it, right? 3.5x in just roughly 2 to 3 weeks was made, and we can see that it's been trending downwards. See, the reality is, people, right? A project can be very, very good, and sometimes there are certain circumstances that really are just like, well, you know, this coin is pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping, right? But it's extremely rare. The coins, they need to slow down, they need to take a break, right? I said this before, but I'll say it again. Imagine like throwing a tennis ball. If you had your hand out like this and you just threw it like that, right, you're not going to throw the tennis ball far. But if you give yourself, if you pull back and you go like this, you're going to be able to throw it really far. Now it's kind of the same thing with the markets. Okay, and we can see Zbeck was going sideways for a very long time. It was pulling back, kind of like a catapult, and then it shot up. But eventually, right, what goes up must come down. But that's okay because I do believe, in this project overall, I do know it's going to do very, very well. And ladies and gentlemen, all right, we will be having, you know, entry opportunities again over the next few short weeks, right? There's gonna be very, very nice opportunities to re enter. We were talking about this for weeks now that there has been zero, and I mean zero confirmation of reversals of anything, right? We talked about possible zones where we could bounce off a little bit, but in terms of actual reversals, zero, right? Very simple. We're just following literally just lower and lower highs. Very, very simple, right? We know this. We know this, right? We talked about the possibility of possibly doing something like this to get into this order block and then sell off. But because of Bitcoin's conditions, because of the market conditions, it never happened. And we can see that we have something very, very similar to what was happening back in February, March of 2025, when we had a nice rally, right? We had a nice rally of 120%. And then we were just slowly, slowly selling off, and then we fell off, right? We also know that we had a bounce up, right? Why? Because, well, we touched off the last all-time high, right? We touched, and then boom, the next day was a very big candle. But of course, that was very, very short-lived. I do expect Zbeck to be going lower, right? When I look at the data, there's nothing that suggests it will go higher. If there is going to be a pullback, there's probably going to be a pullback somewhere in this weekly candle, right? So even if Zbeck does pull up, right, it most likely will, pull up to 0.004 and then just continue to sell off. I did the wrong tool. I did a wrong tool. Boom, right? Why will it sell off here? Well, we have some type of order block. We also have a very big type of resistance. So, there's just more confirmation that we are going to go lower, and especially that we are also in a downtrend. We also know something like Bitcoin is kind of just in a diagonal channel, right? We talked about this in other videos. We talked about streams and etc. But we know we are consistently creating lower and lower highs and also lower lows, right? But it's not too concerning because we are kind of just in this type of channel where we are, going diagonally. But still, right? That means we might be doing something like this and then exploding, doing something very, very similar to what happened for like 6.5 to 7.5 months, right? Where it kind of just go diagonally, slowly downwards, and eventually the momentum starts shifting, right? Consistent higher lows, and then we explode. Now, I don't think necessarily that means we're going to go again sideways for another 7.5 months, right? I think if we do go sideways, it's probably going to be, another month, month and a half at most. But of course, if that's going to be the case, then something like Zbeck shouldn't really see massive, massive gains over the next month or two, right? Of course, if there's going to be some type of life changing news, let's say the XRP partnership officially, or something on that type of caliber, then yeah, we can see some type of rally, right? We can see some type of rally. But it's even then, it's still most likely going to be delayed until we flip the script and are going to be bullish. Right? When we look at something like the monthly candle, we could see, right? For me, this just screams we're going to sell off. The 3 month is, of course, a type of rejection because, we did also pump, but also dump in the same month. So it's not the strongest. It's not the strongest, but it's still, decent. So I do expect price to be going lower, probably at least another 20, 30% at the bare minimum to the downside. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this project. Let me know if you still hold it. Let me know, what your price prediction is. Personally, my price prediction is that 10 to 15 cent area. Of course, technically, this could even go to $1. Now, that sounds crazy. The dollar's a little crazy. Dollar's a little crazy, but 50 to 75 cents is not. But of course, that would have to mean a lot of stars do align for this coin, which we're not relying on just yet. But I do think this coin will be hitting that 10-cent mark, more or less. But of course, we will be continuing to update you guys on this coin as long as you guys just like the videos and support them, right? Because that shows me that you do want more. But that is ultimately it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.